So you've taken us exactly where we needed to go in terms of that, Barney. So you've identified there are issues around the potential banana skin there for journalists. How do, and this is a question for each of you, how do journalists become better at A, not seeing it as a banana skin, and B, starting to understand that there's nuance and perspectives that they need to capture?
Well, I think that journalists would benefit from deeper studies in history and sociology and culture, and then they would be more able to know the difference between the different groups. Like people think Islamic terrorism or something, but then they point to Al-Qaeda, or they don't know that there's a difference between Shia and Sunni, and all those groups like Al-Qaeda and so on are anti-Shia. They don't know the divisions within Islam, for example, which is not my topic, I'm sorry. But anyway, but I think that there is so much to know, and maybe that's too hard, to understand the difference in Buddhism between Chinese, Vietnamese, Tibetan, Korean, Thai. I mean, maybe we're asking a lot to ask you to know, to have better learning about, the complexity of these communities and of these ideas and these histories and these cultures. But if the reporting was going to be better, then it would be informed by a more educated understanding.
Yeah, going on from that, I suppose, I think, there's a few issues. That education is a big thing. Yeah, journalists do need to get educated, but how much education? And I've been in the newsroom, and the pressures in the newsroom are intense. So when you're handed a story, it's I have to get this out. So journalists tend to go to Muslims they speak to, or else the really exciting ones who'll give you a really good quote that will go on the first page. But there has to be, I don't know, I guess there needs to be more of humanity. There needs to be more of the religion reporters who have an understanding of all the religions and have the time to kind of do the deep dive into what this means and the context of which it played out in. I think that's the most important thing. I think also the diversity in a newsroom, there needs to be a bit of work there. When I went to RMIT 11 years ago doing my postgrad in journalism, it was a predominantly white environment. Most were Anglo-Celtic eastern suburbs. I was told at one point by one of my peers that they were surprised I spoke with such a good Australian accent. And that's the type of journalists that are being churned out in the newsroom. So if they're surprised that I speak with an Australian accent, just assuming that I'm straight off the boat, then what hope is there for their coverage, really?
Not sure the world could cope with more than one Barney. When I applied to become the religion reporter of The Age in 2002, the editor was very surprised because it was always a very junior role, and I'd already been at the paper for 20-odd years. It was the sort of round you did to get ready for education or transport or whatever. But I said to him that The Age only ever covers 3 stories about religion. One is, the church is dying. 2, troglodyte church gets in the way of gays and women. And 3, clergy sexual abuse. Now, all of those are important stories, and we should certainly cover them. But if that's the only picture you have of religion, it's really sadly lacking and letting readers and everybody else down. And by the end of, when I began, there were quite a lot of religion reporters in mainstream papers. By the time I left, I used to boast that I was much the best mainstream print journalist in the country, and also the worst. I was the last one listed. The ABC over here were the honourable exception, and they still are the best providers of religion coverage, I believe. But that's part of the charter. It's fairly unusual now.
So you've raised an interesting point there, and Woody used the phrase diversity in the newsroom. And clearly there's been a great deal of attention paid to diversifying newsrooms in terms of gender mix and multicultural mix, but perhaps less emphasis on getting a range of faith-based people in the newsroom. So for Huda and Barney,